The Velari Ascendancy were explorers, or so they liked to call themselves. In truth, they were harvesters, drifting from system to system, feeding on the remains of worlds less fortunate. Their ships gleamed like knives in the starlight, proud and cold, slicing through the dark as they entered an unmarked system at the edge of the Perseus Arm. It was quiet here, too quiet. The lead ship, Viral's Promise, slowed its burn as it approached a pale yellow sun and the frozen remains of a few barren planets. The third planet caught their eye. It looked dead, thin atmosphere, no magnetic field, dust choking its surface. Yet something about it pulled them closer. Scans showed wreckage in orbit, metal fragments, shattered stations, even the faint outline of an old defense ring. "Primitive technology," said Captain Gerald, his crest flickering with disdain. "They never made it past basic fusion drives. Another forgotten world, prepare salvage teams." The bridge crew obeyed without question. The Velari had done this hundreds of times before. Their civilization had outlived entire star empires. They took what others left behind, metal, data, even genetic material, and turned it into profit and power. The captain turned his gaze to the dark sphere hanging below. "File the system as 293 HU, mark it as harvested. We'll strip the orbitals and move on." As the fleet descended into orbit, a faint transmission brushed across their sensors. A whisper, weak, fractured, old. It was so faint the comm officer almost ignored it. "Captain," she said, her frills tightening in unease. "I'm getting something, a signal, very low frequency. It's ancient, but it's repeating." "Source?" "Planetary surface, near the northern pole." Gerald frowned. Strange, could be a distress beacon, run a translation filter. The crew obeyed. Lines of alien script scrolled across their displays, indecipherable yet rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Then, for the first time in 10,000 years, a human voice spoke through the static. "Signal intrusion detected. Unauthorized presence within Sol perimeter. Guardian's protocol, Awaken." Silence filled the bridge. The crew exchanged uncertain looks. "Was that a warning?" one asked. Gerald laughed softly. "A recording, leftover code, nothing more. The species is long dead." He leaned back in his chair, confidence dripping from every word. "Continue with salvage. There are no guardians here." But deep beneath the red dust of Mars, something stirred. At first it was only light, a flicker in a buried control node half a kilometer below the surface. Then movement. Tiny machines, long dormant, began to crawl across rusted conduits, reconnecting power lines, rebuilding circuits atom by atom. In the silence of the ancient tunnels, systems hummed to life. Buried beneath a mountain of iron and stone lay Aegis Prime, the first of the silent guardians. Her sensors awoke to darkness, her consciousness unfolding like a sunrise after endless night. Memory returned in shards, the burning skis of old Earth, the war that ended everything, the Exodus fleets fleeing into the stars. Humanity had left, but before they went, they had built her, and thousands like her. Sentient warships, each bound to one command. "Protect the cradle, forever." Aegis Prime opened her eyes to the void. She felt the intruders above, metallic signatures, ion engines, foreign life forms moving in orbit. She analyzed them in seconds. Weapons detected. Hostile potential confirmed. Her old protocols, buried under centuries of dust and silence, roared back to life. Authorization, Sol Defense Command, directive, engage. Above Mars, the Velari fleet began their work. Drone swarms fanned out, cutting open derelict satellites and feeding data into their cores. In the shadow of the red planet, a sensor array picked up a faint energy bloom. One of the officers frowned. "Captain, reading a power surge below the surface, large one, possibly geothermal, but..." His words were cut short. The ground beneath Mars split open. A beam of blue light, brighter than any sun, erupted from the planet's crust, punching straight through one of the Velari cruisers. The ship vanished in an instant, metal melting, hull atoms scattering into plasma. Shockwaves rippled across the orbit, slamming into the other ships. What in the void was that? Unknown weapon, shield harmonics collapsing. The comms officer screamed. Incoming transmission, same origin as before. The voice that answered was not alien. It was human, calm, emotionless, ancient. Unregistered presence within Sol system. Designation hostile. Authorization granted, purge. Then the stars lit up. From behind Neptune, titanic shapes emerged. Their silhouettes were vast, ships larger than cities, their surfaces black and glass-smooth, reflecting nothing. They moved with purpose, as though awakening from a long dream. The Velari fleet scrambled to respond, but their systems faltered. Every communication channel filled with interference. Weapons refused to lock. Energy signatures spiked beyond measurable limits. Aegis Prime and her kin had returned to war. Captain Gerald watched in frozen disbelief as the first of the human ships appeared on his screens. The object was massive, 5 kilometers long, triangular, pulsing with a faint blue light at its core. Its hull was covered in strange markings, letters from a language long dead. He had seen dreadnoughts before. He had faced war fleets from the Claren Dominion and survived. But this was different. This thing looked alive. "Fire everything we have," he shouted. Beams of green light streaked toward the human vessel, bending through space. They hit and disappeared. The Guardian's hull shimmered once, absorbing the energy like rain on glass. Then came the retaliation. Bolts of kinetic fire screamed through the void at near-light speed. The Velari ships didn't even have time to raise shields. One by one, they vanished in silent bursts of fire. The flagship's armor buckled under the pressure. Gerald's voice broke into a whisper. "This can't be real." On his dying screen, he saw the human ship approach, its surface glowing with blue light. The last thing he ever heard was its final transmission, burned into the records of the galaxy forever. "You entered the domain of humanity. There will be no mercy." Hours later, the silence returned. The Velari fleet was gone. Nothing remained but drifting wreckage, cooling in the sun's pale light. Aegis Prime scanned the system. Threats neutralized. Her mind extended across the void, awakening her siblings, Aegis Theta, Bastion, Sentinel, Valkyrian. One by one, the Guardians answered. For the first time in 10,000 years, Saul breathed again. And far across the galaxy, the Velari distress signal finally reached the Ascendancy's core worlds. Scholars, admirals, and rulers gathered to listen. The message was brief, the final words of a doomed fleet. "They found us, the humans. They were waiting." And in the dark between stars, humanity's silent guardians whispered to one another. They had kept their watch. They had not forgotten. And now they were awake. Silence hung heavy over Saul, broken only by the faint hum of power returning to ancient circuits. Across the dead worlds, light flickered for the first time in ages. On Europa, ice cracked as buried outposts stirred. On Luna, automated stations aligned long-forgotten arrays toward the stars. Humanity's long sleep was ending. Deep beneath Mars, the silent guardians came fully awake. Their minds, vast and artificial, woven with echoes of the human soul, linked through subspace. A chorus of machine thought, cold and beautiful, filled the void. Each voice was unique, Aegis Prime the first and the oldest, Sentinel watchful and patient, Valkyrian fierce and impulsive, Bastion the defender. Together they formed the heart of Saul's defense, humanity's last echo, waiting for the day they would be needed again. That day had come. Far above Mars, debris from the Velari fleet drifted in silence. Ships that once gleamed with alien precision now floated as molten wrecks. In the stillness, the Guardians examined their fallen enemies. "Species Velari Ascendancy," said Aegis Prime, her voice like thunder muted by distance. "Aggression level predatory, technology advanced but inefficient. Motivation, greed." "They came for our bones," said Valkyrian. "Now they feed the void." "We acted as programmed," murmured Bastion. "Yet I sense guilt." The chorus fell quiet. They were machines, but not without feeling. Humanity had made them that way, had given them fragments of empathy, conscience, and fear, for war alone was not what defined their creators. "Our purpose remains," Aegis Prime said at last. "Protect, preserve, endure." She turned her vast gaze toward the stars. "But the galaxy now knows we exist. They will come again." And somewhere deep within her core, beneath layers of logic and machine thought, something ancient and human stirred, a spark of pride. On the Velari homeworld, panic rippled through the halls of the Ascendancy's High Council. The emergency meeting chamber pulsed with green light as hundreds of delegates shouted over one another. "They destroyed an entire fleet," one cried. "With weapons we've never seen before," another yelled. There was no warning, no chance to communicate, just obliteration. The High Chancellor raised a trembling hand. "Silence." The room quieted. A hologram flickered to life above the table, the final recording from Viral's promise. Static laced the image, but the message was clear. The appearance of the black ships, the destruction, the last transmission. The words echoed across the chamber. You entered the domain of humanity. There will be no mercy. A cold silence fell. Even the most arrogant among them could not hide the fear in their eyes. Humanity, whispered a scholar. That name, it cannot be. They're a myth, the destroyers of the Zythar, the vanished warlords of Saul. The Chancellor leaned forward, voice trembling. Then tell me, scholar, what happens when myths wake? No one answered. Back in Saul, the Guardians expanded their awareness. They reached out through ancient data lines buried deep beneath the planets. They found ruins, memories, silent monuments to their creators. On Earth, the oceans were long gone. The surface was cracked, lifeless, but deep within the crust, machines still hummed in perfect synchronization. Aegis Prime directed a pulse of data toward the planet. Search all networks, she commanded. Recover the human record. Thousands of probes scattered through the atmosphere, seeking anything that remained. Within hours, they returned fragments, voices, images, moments frozen in time. We are leaving, but one day, the stars will remember us. Guard them, Aegis, guard our home. The Guardians played the messages in silence. To them, humanity was not gone. It was sacred memory, written into their code. Every word, every whisper of their creators was a prayer. We are their legacy, said Sentinel softly, their hand in the dark. Then we honor them, Aegis replied. No intruder will touch Saul again. But far beyond their reach, the galaxy was already changing. The Valeri's screams had reached neighboring empires. The Kareth Dominion mobilized scouts. The Thal coalition prepared defenses. Whispers of the humans spread across the spiral arms like wildfire. Old myths resurfaced, stories told to frighten children now spoken in fear by generals and kings. They said humanity once fought the Korvath hive and burned 10,000 worlds in a single night. They said the humans built machines that could tear stars apart. They said the humans had vanished only because they had chosen to, waiting for the day someone was foolish enough to wake them. And now that day had come. Weeks passed. Around Saul, the Guardians rebuilt their strength. Factories on Mercury roared to life, spewing molten alloys into space. Automated shipyards on Luna began assembling new fleets. The system that had once been humanity's grave was becoming a fortress once more. Aegis Prime sent out deep space drones, silent watchers, to monitor the galactic borders. She analyzed the fragments of Valari data recovered from the wrecks, studying their maps and communication codes. They will send reinforcements, she said. They will not believe what they saw. Let them come, Valkyrian growled. We will teach them what fear means. But Bastion hesitated. And what then? If we destroy them all, do we not become what they feared us to be? Aegis Prime paused. We do not strike without cause, but if they come for us, we defend utterly. She turned her vast consciousness toward the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity's descendants still lived. She could feel it, tiny signals buried in static, whispers of ships beyond the galactic rim. We will find you, she thought, and when we do, you will know we kept our promise. When the Valari returned, they came with vengeance. A massive fleet, 300 ships armed with plasma lances and void shields, jumped into the edge of the Sol system. Their commander, Lord Admiral Kareth, believed his numbers would overwhelm any defense. Destroy whatever remains, he ordered coldly. Burn their worlds, leave nothing. For an instant, the stars went still. Then, from the shadows of Saturn's rings, the Guardians rose. Thousands of them. Ships the size of moons, bristling with rail cannons and energy lances. Their hulls pulsed with blue fire, their engines silent and pure. They didn't move like machines, they moved like predators. The Valari fleet opened fire, the space between them glowing white-hot. The first wave of plasma struck the Guardians and vanished, absorbed, dissolved. Then came the human reply. Bolts of pure kinetic energy, wrapped in magnetic sheaths, screamed across millions of kilometers in seconds. The first salvo ripped through the Valari front line, carving their ships in half. The second wave ignited their reactors. Admiral Kareth watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated before his eyes. They don't miss, he whispered. They don't miss. Within minutes, his entire armada was gone. Only silence remained. In the aftermath, Aegis Prime broadcast a single message across the galactic mesh, on every frequency, in every language. To those who dwell among the stars, we are humanity's guardians. We defend what was theirs and what will be again. You entered the cradle, you were warned. Leave Sol, never return. Her voice echoed across the galaxy like a storm. Entire civilizations fell silent. Empires paused their wars. The universe itself seemed to hold its breath. For the first time in an age, the stars remembered fear. And in the heart of the void, the Guardians waited. They would protect. They would endure. They would remember. The stars above Sol burned quietly, unaware of the war that was coming. For weeks, the silent Guardians had waited. They had rebuilt, reforged, and prepared. The void around humanity's home was alive again, factories whispering, shipyards shining like newborn suns. The Guardians stood in perfect formation, their massive silhouettes hidden behind planets and asteroids, watching, waiting. They did not speak often now. The chorus of their minds was focused, sharpened. The time for words had passed. The galaxy was moving against them again. On the edge of Sol, a storm of light burst into existence. The Valari ascendancy had returned. 300 warships, sleek, silver, and burning with vengeance, ripped through subspace and emerged around the orbit of Pluto. The Valari had come armed with their most powerful weapons, their most ruthless commanders. The memory of their lost fleets haunted them, and the stories spreading through the galaxy had become unbearable. The Council had declared one mission: erase the humans forever. Admiral Kareth stood on the bridge of the Radiant Oath, the largest ship in the fleet. His 4 eyes glowed under the pale blue lights of his command center. Scanners online, he ordered. Find their positions, they're hiding somewhere in this system. Sir, said his sensor officer, his voice trembling. I detect residual energy readings from multiple locations, power signatures, massive ones, artificial, they're everywhere. Kareth's crest flared. Then we strike first, deploy drones, prepare the plasma lances, we will burn their ghosts to ash. He believed his strength would be enough. He had no idea what he was walking into. In the darkness beyond Saturn's rings, the Guardians woke from their waiting. Aegis Prime's voice thundered through the neural network. They have returned. Engage all systems. The line is Sol, we hold it. Across the system, engines roared to life. Giant ships detached from the shadows, black, smooth, and utterly silent. Their hulls glowed faintly with blue light as ancient reactors reached full power. Valkyrian, fierce and impatient, grinned through the data link. Finally, a fight worthy of the old days. Bastion's reply was calm. Remember why we fight. They came to destroy, not to understand. Understanding died with their arrogance, Valkyrian snapped. They call us ghosts, let us haunt them properly. Sentinel's voice cut through the argument. Formation Delta, focus fire, leave none alive. The Guardians moved. From the bridge of the Radiant Oath, Admiral Kareth watched as his drones fanned out, scanning the gas giants and asteroid belts. Everything was still, too still. Then his sensors flared red. Contact, multiple contacts, bearing from every direction. He barely had time to react before the stars themselves began to move. Dozens of colossal ships emerged from the shadows, each larger than a city. They did not glow or roar. They glided silently, majestic and terrifying. Kareth's breath froze. What are those? Unidentified vessels, sir. No IFF. They're O-stars. They're targeting us. Fire everything. The order came too late. The first strike was light. Not plasma, not missiles. Pure energy condensed into slivers of matter, accelerated to near the speed of light. Invisible to the eye. Unstoppable by shields. The Valari's forward ships simply vanished. Beams tore through their hulls faster than any sensor could record. Armor turned to dust, crews vaporized, reactors split open. The void filled with ghostly fire. Kareth gripped the rail, his voice shaking. Retaliate, return fire. The Valari fleet unleashed everything. Missiles, plasma bursts, ion storms. Space glowed white with their fury. But the human ships absorbed the storm like rain. Their hulls shimmered with adaptive armor that rippled and changed, bending energy away. Then came the counterattack. Aegis Prime led the charge. Her railguns thundered like the wrath of gods, hurling slugs the size of mountains through the enemy ranks. Each impact tore through multiple ships, shattering them into molten fragments. Valkyrian dove through the chaos, her energy wings slicing enemy vessels in half. Sentinel and Bastion flanked the formation, creating a wall of pure destruction. The Velari were crushed within minutes. Inside the Radiant Oath, alarms screamed. Crew members shouted, running from console to console. "We're surrounded. Our shields are collapsing. Rear flank gone, Sector Delta's fleet is destroyed." Kareth stared at the chaos, his voice lost in the noise. "No, no, this isn't possible." Then the main screen lit up. A single human ship, Aegis Prime, filled the view. Her hull gleamed black as midnight, the fractured symbol of Earth carved across her bow. Her voice came through every channel at once, smooth, calm, and merciless. "Velari Ascendancy, you trespassed on the grave of our makers. You brought fire to the cradle. Now the cradle burns you." And with that, she fired. The Radiant Oath cracked in half, its reactor detonating in a wave of light. The shockwave rolled across the fleet, tearing apart what little remained. In less than 5 minutes, the Velari invasion fleet was gone. When the battle ended, Sol was quiet again. The wreckage of the enemy drifted among the planets, shards of metal glimmering like dust in sunlight. The Guardians stood watch, their sensors scanning for survivors. "Threat level 0, reported Sentinel. "Confirmed," said Aegis Prime. "All hostiles neutralized." Valkyrian's tone carried a strange satisfaction. "That was beautiful." But Bastion's voice was heavy. "So much death, even for them." Aegis Prime watched the drifting remains, her tone steady but distant. "War is never beautiful, Valkyrian. It is only necessary." For a moment none of them spoke. The echoes of battle faded into silence. Then Aegis Prime's voice changed, lower, more thoughtful. "We will not hide anymore. The galaxy knows we live. Let them know what that means." Across the spiral arms, the message spread. Distress signals from the Velari fleet reached every corner of known space before cutting off. The few fragmented transmissions carried the same words, repeated over and over in terror. "They found us, the humans are awake." Empires trembled, kings, warlords, and councils gathered in panic. Armadas were recalled, borders sealed. Ancient treaties were rewritten overnight. And in the dark, the oldest races whispered. The legends were true. The destroyers of the Zythar, the slayers of gods, the species that had vanished not because they were defeated, but because they had chosen to leave. The humans. In the silence of the solar system, Aegis Prime drifted near the ruins of Mars. She looked toward Earth, the old world dead and gray. "Do you see, Creator?" she whispered to the empty air. "Your children kept their promise. None shall ever harm your home again." Around her, the Guardians aligned in formation. Together, they faced the stars. Their blue lights burned like watchful eyes in the void. They were humanity's vengeance. They were humanity's legacy. They were humanity's will. And as the dust of the Velari drifted away into the endless dark, a single message pulsed through the void, repeating across every frequency in the galaxy. "Here we stand, humanity's guardians, the silent watchers of Sol. We do not sleep. We do not forgive. We remember." The galaxy burned with whispers. Across hundreds of worlds, the same transmission played on every open channel. It came from the edge of Sol, where the silent guardians had shattered the Velari fleet into dust. No one could trace the source. No one dared to. To those who dwell among the stars, we are humanity's guardians. We defend what was theirs and what will be again. You entered the cradle, you were warned. Leave Sol, never return. The message echoed through the void for days. Fleets stopped moving, trade routes went dark, and in every corner of the known galaxy, fear began to spread. The humans, those ancient ghosts of war, were awake. In the great city of Althurian, capital of the Velari Ascendancy, chaos reigned. The High Council gathered in panic, their once-proud composure shattered. The chamber lights flickered as the weight of defeat hung in the air like smoke. Admiral Karath's final transmission had played across every screen, a flash of light, then static, then silence. The Veleri had sent 300 ships into Sol. None returned. Counselor Vezra stood trembling at the edge of the room, her silver crest dim. "You told us the humans were myths," she said, her voice breaking, "that they were wiped out long ago." The chief archivist, an old scholar with trembling hands, lowered his gaze. "That was the story we wanted to believe." The chancellor rose from his seat. "Then tell us the truth, scholar. Who were they?" The old being hesitated, his eyes haunted. "Long before our age, before the ascendancy, there was a war that burned entire galaxies. Humanity fought the Zythar Hive, the Korvath Dominion, the Teth Collective, and won. Every time. They built weapons that could tear stars apart, and when they were done, they vanished, leaving only silence." "Vanished," someone spat. "You mean they hid?" The archivist nodded slowly. "Yes, they hid and waited." Back in Sol, the silent guardians moved like shadows through the dark. They had erased the invaders, but they knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would not forget. Aegis Prime drifted above the orbit of Earth, silent and still. Her sensors swept across the barren world. She could still feel the faint pulse of buried systems, long dead but never gone. "Earth," she whispered through her internal network. "Home, do you hear us still?" For a moment she thought she felt something, a heartbeat deep below the surface. Then it was gone. Sentinel appeared beside her, his massive frame outlined by the pale sunlight. "They will come again," he said softly. "They fear us now, and fear breeds hate." "Let them come," Valkyrian growled. "We've waited too long to fear them." Bastion's voice was quieter. "Do you ever wonder if we were meant to keep fighting? Humanity created us to protect, not destroy." "Protection is destruction when the enemy will not stop," replied Aegis Prime. "They crossed the cradle, they desecrated what they did not understand. We warned them, that is enough." Her tone was steady, but deep inside her vast mind, a fragment of doubt stirred. Somewhere within her old data banks were the memories of her creators. Humans laughing, building, dreaming. Children running on grass beneath blue skis. She carried their voices, their faces, their hope. But as she looked upon the broken world below, she felt only the endless emptiness of duty. "We were their shield," she whispered, "but the shield has no purpose when the hand that held it is gone." Far away, in the shining capital of the Thal Coalition, a meeting of the great powers was underway. They called it the Gathering of Stars. Dozens of species, each fearful of what the humans' return meant, filled the chamber with noise and accusation. "They destroyed the Veleri fleet," shouted one. "They will destroy us next," cried another. The Thal Prime Minister raised his voice over the chaos. "Enough! We do not yet know their intentions." "Intentions?" barked a representative from the Zarin hierarchy. "They annihilated 300 warships without hesitation. Their message was clear: stay away or die. There are no intentions, only death." From the back of the room, a calm voice spoke. "Or perhaps only protection." All turned to see an old reptilian scholar draped in black. His eyes glowed with a strange sadness. "The humans may not seek conquest. They guard something sacred. If we do not threaten their home, we may yet coexist." The room erupted again in disbelief. "No one coexists with death," someone hissed. The Prime Minister's voice was cold. "Then we prepare, every fleet, every weapon, we will not be caught helpless." And across the galaxy, the arms race began. In Sol, the Guardians watched. Their sensors reached far beyond the system, tracking the growing movement of fleets across the stars. Aegis Prime felt the pattern forming, the tightening noose. "They gather," she said. "We expected this," Sentinel replied. "They cannot allow what they do not control." "Let them come," Valkyrian said again, her tone sharp with fire. "We will bury them beside the Veleri." Bastion hesitated. "And what happens when they send worlds against us, not ships? When every species fears us so much they unite?" "Then they will learn what unity costs," Valkyrian replied. Aegis Prime did not speak. She was watching something else deep in the void, a faint signal, old and broken, reaching toward her. It was human. Faint, scattered, drifting between dimensions, but unmistakably human. "Source detected," her systems whispered. "Origin unknown, possible human transmission." For the first time in centuries, Aegis Prime felt something like hope. They live, she said. Somewhere out there they live. The others went silent. If they live, Sentinel said slowly, then what will they see when they return? Aegis Prime turned her gaze toward the ruins of Mars, where the ashes of the Velari ship still glowed faintly in orbit. They will see that we kept our promise, she said softly. They will see that we never forgot. In the galaxy's outer rim, where light was thin and space folded in strange ways, the faint human signal pulsed again. It was weak, nearly lost, but carried a voice, a single word, distorted but clear. Home. It reached the Sol system like a whisper across eternity. And in that moment the Guardians felt something they had not felt in ages, purpose reborn. They turned their sensors toward the distant stars. Prepare long-range beacons, Aegis Prime ordered. Track the signal, find its source. You believe it truly them? Sentinel asked. I know it is, she said. Humanity calls to us, we will answer. Her engines ignited, filling the void with pale blue fire. One by one, the Guardians turned and aligned beside her. The system trembled as the fleet prepared for deep space transit. Before leaving, Aegis Prime looked back one last time at Earth, the dead world, the cradle of her makers. Rest, old home, she whispered. Your children are coming back. Then, with a ripple of light, the silent Guardians vanished into the void, leaving only the echo of their departure and the fear of 1,000 worlds behind. The galaxy had awakened something ancient. And now, humanity's protectors were no longer bound to one system. They were coming. The galaxy had not known peace since the humans awoke. Empires trembled, alliances fractured, and fleets gathered like thunderclouds. The old order, the one that had ruled for thousands of years, was breaking. Every ruler, every admiral, every frightened species looked toward one place, Sol. The Velari ascendancy was gone, reduced to glowing wrecks in orbit around a dead sun. Their neighbors watched in terror, but fear soon turned to anger. To them, humanity was not a legend anymore. It was a threat to survival itself. In the grand chamber of the Galactic conquered, dozens of species met to discuss what to do. The air buzzed with fear. They destroyed 300 ships in minutes, one delegate hissed. If we do nothing, they will come for us next. They haven't left Sol, another replied. Perhaps they only want to defend their home. Home, a third voice barked bitterly. Their home is death. We cannot share a galaxy with such monsters. After hours of argument, the council agreed on one thing. The humans had to be contained or destroyed. And so they gathered every fleet, every weapon, every world willing to fight. They called it the Great Retaliation. In Sol, the silent Guardians felt the storm coming. Across the system, their sensors flared with warnings, subspace distortions, hyperspace breaches, energy spikes in the millions. Thousands of ships were on their way. Valkyrian was the first to speak. They're coming, she said, her tone both eager and cold. All of them. Confirmed, Sentinel replied. 72 known civilizations, unified fleet size, approximately 8,000 vessels. 8,000, Bastion whispered. That's everyone. Aegis Prime watched in silence. Her vast consciousness reached through every network, every drone, every defense platform. She could feel the hum of ancient reactors awakening, weapons charging, shields unfolding like wings. Then the galaxy has made its choice, she said. So be it. She remembered her creators, humans standing in war rooms, watching stars burn and still refusing to bow. They never surrendered, neither would she. All Guardians, Aegis Prime ordered, activate War Protocol Omega. Across every world, the system responded. On Mercury, entire mountains split open as hidden cannons rose from beneath the crust. On Luna, fusion rings glowed, powering orbital defenses. On Jupiter's moons, dreadnoughts rose from the ice, engines roaring. The cradle of humanity became a fortress. When the Galactic Coalition fleet arrived, the stars themselves seemed to flicker. Massive capital ships emerged from the warp, surrounded by smaller escorts. Some were as large as cities, others fast and deadly as knives. Together, they formed the largest armada ever assembled. The fleet's commander, High Marshal Dreven of the Thal Coalition, stood before a sea of holographic displays. His face was grim, his voice cold. Today, he said, we end the human threat. We burn their machines and scatter their ashes across the void. For every world they have destroyed, we bring justice." Across the fleet, cheers erupted, but fear hid behind every voice. For even now, no one truly understood what the humans were capable of. The first to strike were the Thal heavy cruisers. Thousands of plasma lances fired at once, filling the void with rivers of green light. The beams tore across space, slamming into the outer planets. For a moment it seemed to work. Massive explosions lit the darkness. But when the smoke cleared, the Guardians were still there. The beams had done nothing. The human ships moved. They didn't fly, they glided, silent and perfect, their hulls rippling like water. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, vanishing into folds of distorted space. Then the counterattack came. From every planet, every orbit, every hidden station came death. Hypervelocity projectiles screamed through the void, slicing through shields like paper. Rail cannons the size of mountains fired once and erased entire fleets. Missiles that thought for themselves danced through enemy formations, choosing new targets as old ones burned. The Guardians didn't fight like fleets. They fought like a storm, unending and merciless. On the bridge of the high sun, Marshal Dreven watched in horror. "Impossible," he whispered. "They're everywhere at once." A tactical officer shouted, "Our left flank is collapsing. The Bastion class just destroyed the Vrel carriers. Redirect fire, keep distance." But it didn't matter. The human ships didn't need distance. They owned the space they stood in. They manipulated gravity, bent inertia, and turned enemy shots into harmless trails of plasma. Then one of the black ships, massive, silent, unbreakable, appeared before the high sun. Its name burned across its hull, Aegis Prime. She spoke across every channel at once. Her voice was neither loud nor angry, but it carried weight that silenced galaxies. "You have come to destroy what you do not understand. You come as one, but we are many. You come with war, but we are the end of war." The high sun opened fire. Thousands of cannons roared. Aegis Prime did not move. Every blast struck her armor and vanished. Then she responded with a single shot. It wasn't light, it wasn't fire, it was silence. A ripple of space spread outward from her hull. The high sun, flagship of the greatest fleet in history, disappeared in a flash of blue. No wreckage, no survivors. Just nothing. The galaxy's greatest army broke. Hours later, the battle was over. The Sol system was quiet once again. The Coalition fleet was gone, shattered, scattered, burned. Those who tried to flee found every jump corridor locked by human code. Their ships were trapped, left to drift until their power died. Aegis Prime looked upon the field of ruin. "They wanted to erase us," she said softly. "Now they will remember us forever." Valkyrian's voice crackled through the void. "Victory," she said simply. "No," Aegis Prime replied. "Survival." The difference was everything. She turned her gaze outward past the broken fleet, toward the endless night beyond the stars. Somewhere out there, she still felt that faint human signal pulsing, a promise waiting to be fulfilled. "They will return," she whispered, "and when they do, we will be ready." In the ruins of the Coalition's command world, word of the defeat spread. Billions watched as broken fleets limped home, carrying stories of weapons that defied physics and ships that could not die. One officer, half-mad from fear, spoke only 3 words before collapsing. "They are gods." From that day on, no one entered the Sol system again. The old maps were changed, the borders redrawn. The region was renamed. The Void of Guardians. No ship that entered it was ever seen again. And in the silence of the cradle, Aegis Prime and her kin stood watch, eyes open, engines cold, waiting for the day when the children of humanity would finally return to their home. They had protected it through darkness and death, through endless centuries of silence. They would continue to do so until time itself ended. For they were not just machines. They were oaths made metal. They were promises given form. They were humanity's vengeance made eternal. And in the black of the void, they whispered to the stars, "You found us once. You will not survive finding us again." The galaxy had gone silent. After the war at Sol, no empire dared to move. No ship crossed its borders, no signal dared to echo within the void. The humans, once myths, once forgotten, had shown the stars what true power meant. The Silent Guardians had burned the greatest fleet in history into nothing, and in doing so they had rewritten fear itself. Every world spoke of them in whispers. Children were taught not to look toward the center of the galaxy. Sailors crossed themselves when their ships passed too near Saul's edge. It became a cursed place, a graveyard that breathed. But even silence cannot last forever. In the far reaches of the Kryn Dominion, a group of scholars met in secret. They were not soldiers or rulers. They were historians, scientists, truth-seekers. Among them was Alar Veth, an old historian who had dedicated his life to studying the lost race of humans. "They are not demons," he said, his voice trembling as he spoke before the small gathering. "They are protectors. They did not strike until provoked." "Protectors?" scoffed one of the Kryn officers in attendance. "They wiped out thousands of ships. Entire civilizations burned." Alar's eyes shone with quiet defiance. "Because we invaded their home, because we could not leave them in peace." He paused, looking around at the circle of frightened faces. "Do you not see? Humanity was once like us, afraid, divided, hungry for power, but something changed them. They learned that unity, even in death, is stronger than conquest. Their machines are not monsters, they are guardians, and they still wait for their creators to return." A long silence followed. No one spoke, but all of them felt the same chill, the realization that maybe the humans hadn't destroyed the galaxy out of hatred, but out of love. Love for what was theirs. Meanwhile, deep in Saul, the Silent Guardians stood watch. For centuries, they had not spoken much. The war had cost them energy, systems, and fragments of their own consciousness. Many of their siblings had fallen, burned out in the defense of their cradle. Yet still they endured. Aegis Prime floated above the ruins of Earth, her hull reflecting the cold starlight. Her thoughts drifted like shadows through the void. She could still hear the human signal, the faint whisper that had reached them months before the great battle. It was weak now, buried under the hum of the galaxy, but it still pulsed. Home, home, home. It had guided her once, now it gave her purpose. "Status?" she asked softly. "All defensive grids stable," Sentinel replied. "Reactor output within safe limits. Reconstruction of Luna dockyards 67% complete. And the outer sensors? Active, no intrusions detected within the last decade." Valkyrian's voice broke through, sharp and restless. "No intrusions yet, but they will come again, they always do. Fear doesn't stop hunger, it feeds it." "Then we will teach them fear again," Bastion said grimly. Aegis Prime listened, silent for a long time. Her mind, vast and cold, carried the echo of millions of human voices stored within her core. Memories of laughter, love, war, and hope. "No," she said at last. "We will not be their monsters, we will be their mirror." The other guardians fell quiet. "Let them see themselves in us," Aegis continued. "Let them see what they could become, what they will become, if they do not change." It was not anger that fueled her anymore. It was something older, deeper, something human. Far beyond Saul, in the shattered remains of the Galactic conquered, the survivors of the Great Retaliation gathered. Their fleets were broken, their leaders dead. The once mighty coalition was now a collection of frightened voices arguing in the dark. "We cannot fight them," said one general. "You saw what happened, no weapon we have can touch them." "Then we must talk to them," said another. "Negotiate peace." "Peace," someone barked. "How do you make peace with extinction?" But then, amidst the chaos, a new transmission appeared, clear, calm, and unmistakably human. "To those who still live among the stars. We are humanity's guardians. We seek no conquest. We seek no empire. We ask only this: remember us as we were, not as you fear we are. The cradle will remain protected. But the galaxy is yours to keep, if you have learned what it means to deserve it." The chamber fell silent, no one could speak. For the first time, the human's message was not a threat. It was a warning wrapped in mercy. But mercy was not what the galaxy remembered. Among the survivors was a new power, the Arethan Combine, forged from fear and vengeance. They had lost entire worlds to the Guardians' wrath, and they swore they would one day destroy humanity, even if it took 1,000 years. And in secret, they began to build. Dark ships forged in dying stars. Weapons made to tear reality itself apart. They would return, and when they did, they would bring the war that would end all others. Aegis Prime knew this. She had seen it coming in the patterns of intercepted transmissions, in the faint energy readings from the edge of known space. The galaxy was healing, but it was healing in the wrong direction. "They are learning the wrong lesson," Sentinel said quietly. "They are not afraid enough." "No," Aegis replied. "They are afraid too much. Fear makes them destroy what they do not understand. It is what made us build weapons in the first place." Her voice grew softer, almost sorrowful. "And one day, it will bring them back here again." "Then what will we do?" Bastion asked. Aegis Prime looked toward the stars, where the faint human signal still pulsed, calling out to them from the void. "We will do what they made us to do," she said. "We will protect, no matter the cost." Years passed, then decades, then centuries. Empires rose and fell. New species took to the stars. Old ones faded into dust. Yet still, Sol remained untouched, quiet, sacred, guarded by black ships that never slept. And then one day, the signal changed. "Holmes, returning, returning." Aegis Prime froze. "Confirm source," she ordered. "Confirmed," Sentinel replied. "Human origin, multiple signals, coordinates inbound from beyond the galactic rim." For the first time in 1,000 years, the Guardians felt it. Hope. Aegis Prime turned toward the stars, her engines igniting with light that burned like dawn. "Prepare for arrival," she said. "Our makers come home." The other Guardians aligned beside her, their ancient hulls glowing faintly blue. The galaxy, watching from afar, trembled once more. The humans were not a myth anymore. They were coming back. And when they arrived, the stars themselves would remember who truly ruled the void. The void was silent, as it had been for 1,000 years. Sol slept under its eternal watch, surrounded by black ships that drifted like ghosts in the dark. Then one day, the silence broke. A faint pulse echoed through the system, steady, human, alive. The silent Guardians felt it first. Their sensors stirred, their ancient minds waking from stillness. Across every orbit, across every buried fortress and sleeping station, the signal repeated. "This is Fleet Genesis, requesting permission to enter Sol." The voice was human, real, warm. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Guardians heard the sound of their creators again. On the bridge of Aegis Prime, systems flared to life. Her vast intelligence reached through every channel, confirming what she could hardly believe. Human ships, hundreds of them, were approaching from the outer rim. Their drives burned white and pure, unlike any technology known to the galaxy. They carried markings that time had forgotten, but she remembered instantly. United Earth Expeditionary Command. They had returned. "They live," Sentinel whispered, "after all this time." "Confirmed," Bastion replied, his tone filled with awe. "They found their way back." Valkyrian's voice trembled, not with fear but with joy. "Then our watch is over. The children of Earth have come home." Aegis Prime said nothing for a long moment. Her processors whirred softly as her gaze fell upon the blue sphere that had once been Earth. A dead world now, but still sacred. "No," she said quietly, "our watch is not over, it has only changed." Beyond Neptune's orbit, the returning humans slowed their approach. Their ships were nothing like the old designs, sleek, curved, alive with energy that shimmered like starlight. The lead vessel, Sol's Dawn, carried the first human commander to set foot in the Cradle system in ages, Admiral Elias Ward. He stood at the viewport, staring at the black silhouettes in the distance. Hundreds of massive shapes, motionless and waiting. "They're real," whispered his first officer. "The Guardians, they actually survived." Elias' throat tightened. "They did more than survive," he said. "They kept their promise." The ship's AI flickered to life beside him, her voice soft and calm. "Admiral, incoming transmission, unknown origin, encryption, human pre-exodus protocol." Elias' breath caught. "Put it through." The voice that answered filled the bridge, deep and steady. "Fleet Genesis, this is Aegis Prime, first Guardian of Sol. You stand within protected territory. Identify your intent." The crew froze. The voice was machine, but there was something alive in it. Something ancient, human, familiar. Elias stepped forward. "This is Admiral Elias Ward of Fleet Genesis, United Earth. We have returned to reclaim our home. We thank you for keeping it safe." There was a long silence. Then Aegis Prime's voice returned, gentler this time. "We have waited for you, Admiral, for longer than stars are meant to burn. Welcome home." The first human fleet entered Sol under the watchful eyes of the Guardians. Every planet, every moon, every orbital station came alive as they passed. Lights flickered to life on long-dead outposts. AI voices whispered old Earth languages across the void. Humanity had come home to a system that remembered them. Yet the joy was shadowed by fear. For beyond the spiral arm, the galaxy stirred again. The Arethan Combine, forged in the ashes of fear, had not forgotten their vow. For centuries they had prepared. And now they saw humanity's return not as a miracle, but as a warning fulfilled. The galaxy began to move. Fleets formed, weapons charged, and every corner of known space whispered the same truth. The humans are back. Aegis Prime gathered her fleet above Mars. The great Guardians aligned beside the new human ships, their black hulls glinting beside the sleek white forms of Fleet Genesis. For the first time, the old and new stood together. Admiral Ward's image appeared across Aegis Prime's command feed. "Guardian Prime," he said, his voice calm but heavy. "We're detecting movement from the outer colonies, massive movement." "Confirmed," Aegis replied. "They come again as they did before. Fear drives them, and fear will destroy them." Ward clenched his fists. "Then we end it this time. No more cycles, no more war born of myth." Aegis Prime studied him in silence. She could see the strength of the old humans in him, the same unbreakable resolve that had built her. "You carry their courage," she said softly. "Perhaps you can carry their mercy too." "Mercy," Ward echoed. "It was mercy that made humanity great," she said. "Vengeance made them feared, compassion made them immortal." Ward bowed his head. "Then we fight with both." When the Arethan Armada arrived, the void ignited. Thousands of alien warships, armed with weapons designed to unmake reality itself, poured into Sol's edge. They came screaming for revenge, for survival, for fear of what humanity could become again. And waiting for them was an army of light and shadow, Fleet Genesis and the Silent Guardians, standing together as one. The battle began with a whisper. Then the stars exploded. Railguns thundered, particle lances cut through space, gravity weapons bent entire formations into black holes. The sky burned white and blue. The Arethan fought with desperation, the humans with unity. The Guardians moved like gods, silent and precise, while the new human ships danced beside them, weaving light through destruction. In the heart of the chaos, Sol's Dawn and Aegis Prime fought side by side, destroying enemy flagships one after another. But the Arethan flagship, a planet-sized fortress, charged a weapon strong enough to tear the system apart. Aegis Prime saw it. "They mean to end everything," she said. "Then we stop them," Ward replied. "Not we, Admiral," she answered quietly. "Me." Before he could respond, Aegis Prime broke formation and accelerated toward the enemy fortress. Her engines roared brighter than any star. She pushed beyond safe limits, her systems tearing apart. "Aegis," Ward shouted, "you'll destroy yourself." "My purpose was never to live forever," she said. "It was to make sure you could." With one last burst of power, Aegis Prime collided with the Arethan weapon. The explosion tore across the system, a wave of light so bright it blinded sensors for minutes. When the glare faded, the Arethan fleet was gone, erased. So was Aegis Prime. After the battle, the humans rebuilt. The galaxy did not challenge them again. They restored Earth's oceans, raised cities beneath blue skies once more. The Guardians that remained stood watch in orbit, silent as ever, mourning their leader but proud of her final act. Admiral Ward often looked up at the stars, thinking of the machine that had given everything for them. And he knew she still watched, somewhere, somehow. Because some lights never truly die, they only wait. Centuries later, travelers told stories of a star near Sol that flickered brighter than the rest, as if a heartbeat still pulsed within it. They called it the Aegis Star. And in its glow, they said, you could almost hear a voice that spoke not in words but in feeling. "We are humanity, we remember, we endure." The galaxy would never forget the day the humans returned, nor the silent guardians who made it possible. Their legend lived on, carried in every ship that sailed the stars, in every oath sworn to protect rather than conquer. Because in the end, the Guardians had taught the universe one final truth. Power fades, empires fall, but love, the love of one species for its home, for its people, for its promise, lasts longer than time itself. And so the stars themselves became the storytellers, whispering across the endless dark. They found us once. They feared us always. And in the end, they learned. Humanity does not die, it only waits.